Hi there, and welcome to episode 47 of the ADHD Adults Podcast, the podcast that critics, or at least one critic, are saying, what are all the laughter and jokes for? It isn't supposed to be a comedy show, which I think is the best comment we've ever received about the podcast ever. I'm James Brown, the person that somehow managed to forge an entire career after filming one television episode with Angela Rippon, or the Ripper, as we call her in the biz. As usual, I'm joined by the man who can't be filmed for television because nobody's managed to engineer a camera that's got a wide enough screen for his massive bulbous spherical head, Dr. Alex Connor. Hi, Alex.
Word to your father.
So I can see why you've done that joke. I kind of get the mechanism. It's parenting, etc. But it's still objectively not funny, is it? No. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm excellent. Very excited that we're reaching listener numbers that match your ADHD tax overdraft. Yeah, like 100,000. One of them sent us a letter from Robert from Kidderminster. It says, "Dear team, can you do a parenting episode about fathers? I'd love to know where I went so terribly and objectively wrong." You're in luck today, Robert. That's exactly what we're doing.
The only bit about that that was funny was "Dear team." I'll be honest now.
It's a good joke.
Yeah,
Right, we have a real email from a listener today, James, and we have permission to say it's from Joe. And it goes...
just to let everybody know, Mrs. ADHD just walked in while we're recording the... Hi, Sam, you're right?
I heard, yeah. This is a thing. We're doing a professional show.
Anyway, that was Mrs.
You get
ADHD.
one diagnosis and you're right up yourself. Okay, right.
Anyway,
I've got a real letter from a Joe who says, "Hello, you saucy pair. It's Joe, a 23-year-old fellow Brummie here. I had my ADHD assessment today, and fair to say, I passed with flying colours. Been listening to your podcast since episode 4 came out and absolutely love it. Learning about ADHD through to getting a diagnosis has all happened quite quickly. But by listening to you guys with the extremely informative, reflective, and light-hearted approach, offensive, you give has allowed the challenge to my sense of identity and the reappraisal of my whole life much easier to digest. Although seeing life through a slightly different lens now, you guys have made me realise that it's okay. So I can't thank you enough for that." I really love it, don't we, James?
We do. We actually had one the other day which made me cry a little bit. It was so touching. What's your reading age, Al? Because you struggle sometimes, don't you? It sounds like the bigger words challenge you a little bit. Mine's 12, by the way. Well, the last time it was measured,
I wasn't paying attention whilst reading the letter. That's what it was. For some reason, I don't know why. Perhaps we'll never know.
It's the thing, isn't it?
Yes, but we love your emails and we try and read everyone, but they are coming in thick and fast. So if it takes us a week or two to get to them, we're really, really sorry. Right. Also, James, international. We've gone up again to 125 countries, and the new country is Andorra. I'm 100% sure.
Can I say something, Alex?
Yeah.
I actually find this bit of the podcast difficult. And I think about it a lot, actually, because obviously, fundamentally, I want the podcast to be successful. I want us to help more people. I want more people to listen. But at the same time, obviously, on a very fundamental level, I want you to fail and to feel a failure. So I really struggle with this bit where we talk about how successful the podcast is, because by reflection, it maybe suggests that you're successful. It is. I don't like it. It's difficult.
It's inspired me, let's be honest. We are both bewildered and grateful to why we get so many listeners from so many countries. But this week we're going to say a big Catalan, hola y benvingut, to our Andorra listener, James.
So I've got friends who are both Catalan and live in that area. And I just want to say sorry, first of all, if you're listening, because that was probably just utter crap, wasn't it? Anyway, as usual, this broken clay pot discarded in a skip outside a factory in Stoke-on-Trent of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme. And I'd like to say that last time was about ADHD and being a mother with ADHD, except it wasn't, was it, Alex? It was imposter syndrome because you had one job and you were bad at that job, weren't you? Yes. So this week, we're now completing the other end of that double fister. We're focusing on the other, not easier, just less hard side of the coin as part 2 of our poorly planned episodes on parenting with ADHD. So this time we're talking about being a father with ADHD. Thanks again to Evidence Based, Doula and Rachel for suggesting these. I probably said that last time. Fuck knows. I can't remember. But thanks to everybody that's talked about this and for everyone that responded last time. We had a really good response because Jesse was brilliant. I mean, Alex was terrible, but I think Jesse's brilliance kind of made up for your terribleness, Al.
Yeah.
As always, the 3 parts include some evidence-based psychoeducation about fatherhood with ADHD, delivered by the man with more children than listeners to his boring part of the podcast, Alex, the psychoeducation monkey.
No.
Our personal reflections, and now this bit is kind of read out each week, but this again feels like an attack on my lack of ability to have children. Our personal reflections on being a father with ADHD. And the third and final bit, which is top tips on being a father when you already have ADHD, which again, I've got fuck all for. So the reason I'm actually excited about this, even though I can add nothing to this podcast at all, is that we're going to bring in an actual expert.
But I've got children. I am a father.
And what an expert it is. This is going to be the reason I'm really excited. Whenever there's anything that challenges Alex, obviously excites me. But the reason, and I'm literally shivering with excitement here, Alex, the hairs on my arms are standing up on end, is because we've got Jules. Jules, hello.
Watch it. All right.
See, I'm quite happy for Jules to say that, Al, because now Jules has children. And far more importantly, though, if you're a regular listener, first of all, what's wrong with you? Secondly, you might recognize the name Jules because he is the more intelligent, better looking, more charming and funnier version of Alex from the same family of Connors.
Well, is he though?
Well, yeah, obviously, as people will know when they finish listening to this podcast.
Hello, Jules.
Hello, bro.
So, this is in many ways an audition for Jules to replace you, Al. As long as he does well, then I can find a way of getting you off this podcast and moving on to other things. I suppose, first of all, Jules, why have you agreed to do this? I mean, this is madness, isn't it, for you to come on here? Other than to help me out with Alex, I've been messaging Jules on Facebook for ages saying, "Can you come on the podcast and just make Alex look worse?" So I'm really glad that he's done so. Now, Jules, you don't yet have a diagnosis of ADHD, but
no, I was kind of outed by this podcast. I think,
which is inappropriate.
Yeah.
But since then, I think I have traits. I think I was as a man in his incredibly early 50s. I just like to point out, I
very late 40s.
Very, very late 40s, incredibly late. I think I probably exhibited more issues as a kid and a young man than I do today. I was pretty shy and unsure then, very quiet in school, but proper hard work everywhere else. There's some cine film of me, and I really feel sorry for my parents sometimes when I look at that. As a school, I was not good at learning, really quite poor at learning. Much better now. I remember feeling really sorry for Mr. Johnson, our chemistry teacher. He's just trying to explain basic chemistry concept to me. Really felt poor bugger. How could you? I remember looking at him and thinking, look at him just talking away at me. Poor sod. And I could see his lips moving, and all I do was feeling sorry for him as it wasn't going in. But since then, I'm much better at learning. I give myself sort of sections of time. I've gone on to do fairly okay academically, surprisingly. But it's all about learning how to adapt to it. And I say I'm less of a human and more a sack of coping mechanisms now. It's possibly my reluctance to get officially assessed and potentially diagnosed really. But I've also noticed recently that I'm recognizing some of those traits in my own kid, and I want to give her an edge in handling it. So I do have to recognize those if they exist.
Brilliant. Thanks,
I mean, they
Jules.
exist massively, but that would be inappropriate to say, so I won't.
Yeah, just talk over me, Alex. Just talk over me, Alex. It's fine. Remember, when you're making a joke, put your hand up because we need to be aware that it's a joke that's coming, so we can pretend to laugh afterwards.
Hand up.
Again, thanks, Jules. Gives Alex time to cut over him. He doesn't. Alex, can we get your bit done now quickly, just to get it out of the way?
Yes. All right then. Much of what we discussed in part 1 with Jess around chaos at home, executive function is, of course, true for dads as well as mums, also any other kind of guardian, whatever. It's hard, is the point, parenting. As we also said last time, there's very little robust research on parenting in general with ADHD. Most adult men with ADHD are also not diagnosed. Treatment and support definitely helps with most aspects already. We've got those same problems here. Even with diagnosis and treatment, many of the aspects of parenting hit those exact buttons. There are cultural expectations of men in general that ADHD people often struggle with in terms of being a parent.
Obviously, I'm not coming from the perspective of being a father, but I think my only cultural expectation of me now is to be grumpy, generally, and abusive towards you. And actually, you have no concept of culture post 1860, do you?
No, but I understand medieval parenting very well. So again, there's a likely chance that if you are parenting with ADHD, if you're a dad, one of your kids will have it too. What research there is, like parent sleep quality, fewer social support, more home chaos. This is linked to the severity of ADHD symptoms. One aspect for men is that in one study for fathers, it was only really their own ADHD symptoms that predicted higher levels of home chaos, not their own kids. Who knows why?
I can hazard a guess based on spending time with you and your family.
Yeah, I bet you can. So a cultural difference observed is that the decisions to have children in the first place might be one that an ADHD person is more likely to make, either just through impulsive decisions, sure, why not? A lack of thought, and like there is no actual future if you're time blind, but also taking risks when in flagrante. So impulsive, unprotected in flagrante, when you're in bed with someone, James. Whilst this is
Don't
true
you
for all of us,
normally call it bonking?
Bonking, exactly. Whilst this is true for all of us, there is less cultural pressure on men. As Phil Wang says, you can just run away if you're a man. You shouldn't. It's just very easy. It's an amazing episode.
Brilliant, Alex. Well done.
It might, and this isn't proper science, it might be an evolutionary advantage, specifically culturally for men. I've been told by experts that we are more likely to have more children, that's all ADHD people, from more than one partner. And actually, I was asked this in my own psychiatric assessment, again, not gendered. In general, and this is probably obvious, while support for those executive function skills fathers also struggle with can really help. Getting a diagnosis, treatment, and emotional acceptance, blah, 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 of your own ADHD is absolutely key to more effective relationships.
Are you done?
Yeah. Good.
Right. So in review, some good information delivered poorly. Notes could have been quicker. Jules, let's get you in. What are your thoughts on the if you were paying attention, because I just fall asleep when Alex does his bits. What are your thoughts on what Alex has just said?
If it wasn't evolutionary advantageous in some way, I think less people would have it, because it's more than we think, isn't it? As an adult, although I struggle to define myself as possibly having ADHD, being older and occasionally more aware of my own quite profound and extensive limitations, I find it easier perhaps to forgive, for want of a better word, some of the traits in others. For example, my own kid. It's often still fucking irritating, though, isn't it? I feel bad about that. Irritated by something I do.
Yeah, I mean that's it, though, isn't it? We spend all these years being irritated by what we do, and particularly in that realm of parenting, which I've got fuck all experience in. So why I'm even talking at this point in the podcast, I don't know, and I've forgotten what I meant to say at the start of that sentence. So, in summary, it says, "Well done, Alex." In particular, he's always doing this, messing with the fucking script. Well done, Alex, in particular, and time for a break, for fuck's sake. No, I'd like to say thank you, Jules, for adding your thoughts to Alex's pathetically delivered psychoeducation. We've now got time so I can have a break, and we can, in that break, give Alex lots of shit about what he was like as a child. See you in part 2.
Hello and welcome to episode 47 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we are in part 2 of our double header, parenting with ADHD. We're talking about being a father with ADHD. Right, as always, we're doing personal reflections, and we've got a ringer who is also vaguely related to me on. James, there are loads of children in your life, even though you're not actually a father. What are your personal reflections of fatherhood and ADHD?
This actually feels a bit personal now. getting me in first to talk about my personal reflections on being a father with ADHD. If you can just remember back to the first episode, Alex, remember my problem is I'm too fertile. Remember that I've just got very strong sperm. The only problem is there's just one of them, a bit like Cillian Murphy in 28 Days Later, left in a barren world littered with crap inside my scrotal sac. So that is pretty much my reflection on being not a parent with ADHD. So let's move on to you, Alex. What about you? Because you've got millions of kids.
I have got 4 children, yes, and they're very age-wise they vary a lot as well. It's a tricky one, this, partly because talking about being a parent with ADHD, everyone is going to find out the main source of all my self-loathing and personal shame.
Woohoo!
I know. 99% of which is the lengths I will go to not have to read fucking Biff and Chip school books at night with the kids. I try and find books that are funny for me. I read like Terry Pratchett kids books or something, but it's just all the things. The main problem for me is the baby stage. Having babies sent my mental health in the bin. James, I nearly reached U levels of mental health.
I mean, that's a bold statement, Alex. That is.
Yeah, nearly. I was so unhappy because of the constant mental and physical demands on your time. That's how it feels. Every second you can be interrupted, and it sort of feels like water torture. And after that, after the baby stage, sort of 2.5 or so, it's been awesome. The guilt of how shit I've been with babies it's never gone away. I'll always have that. But the kind of neurodivergence of someone treated with ADHD, that can be good because I'm always up for a slide if we go to the water park. I can't sunbathe anyway, so I might as well play games and go on the slides and mess about. Being aware of the hereditary nature of it is crucial, I think, when you are a parent because of getting angry with your kids. But it's also a danger. So I a bit like Jules said earlier, actually, I get grumpy about traits I don't like about myself. Like it's always that way, isn't it? When something you really hate about yourself and your kid does it, you feel furious, and then you pass that feeling on. What I've tried to do is stop gaslighting as a parent and just letting go, admitting I can't do stuff and asking for help from a partner. It's amazing how hard it is to ask for help, and yet people seem to like helping. Although playgrounds are fucking boring, James. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, I'm not allowed near them. So anyway, shush now, cockface. The reason we've got Jules on, other than him technically auditioning to replace you one day, is to give his perspective as a parent with or a father with ADHD. So, Jules, you want to give us some of your personal reflections?
Sorry, I was rocking back and forth at the idea of reading Biff and Chip again.
What
was the magic key all about? Do you remember that?
The magic
key.
Read them.
I made a quick list of things to mention, but ran out of memory on my phone. So, and I wonder whether I've rewritten history in my mind, because I did, like you think about memory. Are you remembering the event, or are you remembering your last memory of the event? I've got, memories of beatifically strolling around, gazing adoringly at my sleeping baby in my arm. When most of the time, if I was carrying the baby, I'd be trying to do everything else at the same time and failing miserably. And it's just so difficult, isn't it? I think we're quite lucky in our family. I think blokes tend to be quite paternal, so we've got that as a counterpoint to well, some of us are.
Yeah, Alex, for those who aren't watching on YouTube, Alex was gently shaking his head during that statement.
I think a lot of the time I found it hard and boring, and I still I think we still have it. I think it's we still have it easier than the mums, though. So that forces your hand a little bit. And I think sometimes there's a mental sacrifice for your child's well-being is up there with the you would walk through fire for your kids. I don't know why we do that. Genes, genetics, swines they are. So it does help, though. I remember I was doing a degree when I learned how to learn. I was doing a degree, and I remember when my son was a baby, doing my dissertation with him in my lap, writing at 10 a.m. And I was able to do that sort of thing and just do it for if he was asleep for 45 minutes, I could do that. So it stopped me getting absolutely bored out of my head. So that worked quite well. But I think as a parent, it's controlling the emotional dysregulation for me. I either try not to get really upset by something they've done, try not to get angry at something they've done, but then recognizing that getting angry and upset at something stupid your children have done is perfectly natural and okay. It's just not going overboard with it, really trying to control it, which is fun, isn't it?
It's hard.
Do you think? I think with self-acceptance we talked about, I think that is amazingly powerful. You can give yourself forgiveness for doing that, but it sort of lets you handle it, lets you predict it's going to happen, and then sometimes take little evasive maneuvers to try and reduce them a bit if they're not appropriate. That could be just age talking.
No, I think it is true. It's the emotional dysregulation is strong when you're tired, and your kids say you're feeling bad, and you go wild. You go wild about things that don't matter.
If with me, I sort of talk about self-acceptance, and I try to explain to my daughter that you accept who you are and accept your limitations and be aware of them, and then I try and change them into an entirely different conforming human being. It's not right.
Yeah, do your fucking homework. I love you as you are.
I've no idea who's going
normally,
next.
Jules, normally, Jules, with all guests, people have got something to promote, but we've just brought you on to take the piss, really, haven't we? So, anything to promote?
I've just got my book of recipes. No, I really don't.
Right. So I suppose, Alex, it's time for the bit where obviously you changed the script to say no time for the game today, and I've just written fuck off Alex next to it. Yeah. So again, I'm going to give Alex the choice, but then you two are going to go head to head. So Alex, the choice is laptops, which you said you're never going to pick, and meetings. Yeah. So which is it? Laptops, is it?
Ooh, I'm going to go meetings, James.
Oh, there's a surprise. So I'm going to let Jules go first with this, but I'll both let you prepare for this. So I missed a meeting in this past week. It's the third time I've missed a meeting with the person I missed a meeting with, and they're an important person. And the question is, why did I miss this meeting? So is the answer I missed the meeting that A, I forgot to put it in my calendar in any way whatsoever, and therefore obviously missed it? Is it B, that I put it in my calendar, but for like the wrong time, and not just the wrong time as in not this month? So it was a different day, different time, different month. Or is it C, that I was in another meeting which was really, really rewarding, and therefore didn't notice when that meeting had overrun and that there were notifications which I'd missed? So A, B, or C, Jules, first, did I just completely not put it in my calendar? Did I put it in my calendar in totally the wrong time, day, week, month? Or was I in a meeting that I was enjoying and therefore didn't pay attention to any notifications?
I don't think would have forgotten your calendar, because I think you're so super clever. You don't need a calendar. You just keep it all up here.
It's a while since we've met, Jules, isn't it?
I think that's good. Well, you're a professor, you see, so you've got to naturally respect that.
Kind of.
I bet you. Oh, imagine that, Al. Imagine that, Al. Even if you in the future you became one, you know, he got there first. It's amazing. Wrong time. I think, well, you wouldn't have used the calendar because of your superior intellect. So I'm going to go. I think you were in another meeting and you were providing such joy to them that you thought, I better not.
I hate this.
So I'm going to go for C.
He's gone completely the opposite route, which is thinking good things about me, and I love that, Jules. I fucking love that. Right, Alex?
Jules, you've made the worst game in the world worse. Fuck me. This is awful.
I don't
it's
even care if I'm
obviously
wrong.
not rewarding because James couldn't make anybody feel anything was rewarding whatsoever. So it isn't that. It isn't the wrong day, month, or time because James has got them tattooed on his feet so he doesn't forget. So you didn't put it in the calendar at all.
Okay, and
I'm
delighted to say that Jules got it right and Alex got it wrong. I was in a meeting that went on 2 hours longer than it was meant to, but because it was doing little tasks and I was making progress on those little tasks, I was happy to carry on doing it. Completely forgot I'd set up a meeting.
Was I in it? Is that why it was so good?
I mean, I don't think I need to answer that question, and I'm pretty sure that our listeners have realised that as well.
I'm going to go to the shop and buy one of those, a little tiny trophy and run around my garden with it. I'm so happy about winning that.
I'll happily pay for that.
I believe my pass rate is 100%. What's ours?
100%, Jules.
Close to that.
I mean, close. That's a relative term, isn't it, Alex? Because you're probably in the 30s. Although we still need to upload those 2 episodes, so Dave can count them for us. Brilliant. So on that very happy note, that takes us to the break, and we'll come back. I mean, top tips on parenting from me. We need to change the structure for some of these podcasts. Anyway, we'll come back, and I'll obviously literally say fuck all, and these two can talk for a bit. See you in part 3.
Hello, welcome back to the ADHD Adults Podcast, episode 47. This is part 2 of our double header, James, parenting, where we're talking about being a father who has ADHD. James, just the tip is probably why you're not a father with ADHD. What is your best tip?
Are you fucking joking? I mean, listen, I'll hand it over to you two. Carry on, guys. Obviously, I've got no fucking tips, Alex.
You kind of father me all the time, really.
Yeah, but I mean, in a maladaptive, beating you up and kind of
Victorian dad.
Which I wouldn't want to kind of suggest in any way as a top tip for any father out there with ADHD or otherwise. So I'll wisely extract myself from this section of the podcast and go and have a wank or something.
Okay, so I have my tip is this: be fucking kind to yourself. Communicate the things you can't do, and really think about the things that you can do, as in are good at and that are positive.
I thought you were listing them as A, B, and C, and you started with B because you said my top tip is B.
I've done that before, yeah. B.
Exactly. Yeah.
3. 7. When you have ADHD and you've got children, there are conflicts there that you will never, ever, ever solve, and that takes emotional acceptance. Blah blah blah. Some of the things you have to do for them and really, really want to do for them are either impossible or they come at a terrible cost to your mental health. So here's the tip, and it's what I said before, really. Ask for help without gaslighting that, it's normal, in inverted commas. It's okay to be a deficient. I am. I ask a partner or a relative or a friend, anybody, to help you by saying, I struggle with that because I'm kooky. It's not kooky. I have a disability. If disability or ADHD is hard to say I have a neurological disorder. That is true. You don't have to clarify which one if you don't want, but ask for help. Say everyone doesn't need help with this, but I do. That's my tip, James. Really, Jules. Apart from don't involve your uncle in the parenting, what top tips?
Use the stick without the nail in it. No, I think we go on about emotional acceptance, blah blah blah, and it's so important. But I think if you're a father and you've got some of those traits and you've noticed that in your kids, you probably have to realize that they're a part of you, they're an extension of you. So it's sometimes easier not to change their behavior, but to change your response to their behavior. So a kind of extending the self-acceptance to include them and their I don't want to say failings, their traits. Also, get your kid a digital watch with an alarm so they don't forget to go to their bastard drumming lesson that you paid for.
I mean, isn't it get yourself a digital watch?
I've got loads somewhere.
I'm wearing two that give me the same notifications.
I love, Jules, that your tip for being a father with ADHD is get your kid to do it.
Yeah, pass responsibility onto your child.
Yeah.
Try and have at least one without any ADHD traits. Just try.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
To be the parent.
Right.
Good.
On that subject, we'll move on to the product recommendation of the week, which Alex has written in vasectomy, which I think is certainly for some people in this conversation reasonable. I'm going to go with a different one though, Alex. Apologies. I've got a couple I'm thinking about, but somebody called Chris got in touch to tell me about, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Cleverly. And this is a device which plugs in. It's a device that plugs into your cigarette lighter in your car and reminds you before you leave the car to check the back seat, for children, things like that, and dogs. And it just seems quite apt for this particular episode that That's something that literally says check the back seat before you get out the car. So you can go, hang on a minute. Oh yeah, there is a small child there, or a dog there, or a handbag. Can be really useful for a group of people who maybe never check the back seat.
Do you think it'd be useful in a car? You know, if you have a warning like pressure, like your tire's gone down or something's open, it's at the beginning of the journey. And then by the time you finish this, I'll check that when I get a stop. And then obviously you never do. So you have like an orange light on forever and ever. Why doesn't that come off when you turn your engine off? Then you can go and check the tire.
It's a good point. It's not. It's because remember, all these things are ableist. All these things are aimed at the 95% of the population that aren't neurodivergent and will say, "Oh yeah, I'll check the tires. I'll go to the garage now and do it." And don't, like me, have you need a service light on your car for 2.5 years.
I've had one for 1.5 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's painful. It's a good spot though.
It is. So anyway, have a look into Cleverelli. And thanks, Chris, for giving us the recommendation. That was episode 40. I don't even know if it was 47 because obviously Alex fucked up the order in terms of getting Jules on. I think 47. It was episode 47.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, which is part 2 of a double fist at Alex, not Heather, about parenting for the ADHD adults. I'm sorry, the syntax in this sentence is shit. Did you write this?
Doesn't sound like me.
That was episode. It is you because it's in black, and I never write in black. That was episode 47, part 2 of a double header about parenting for the ADHD adults podcast. We'll be providing a service for them, are we? Anyway, I'm getting distracted by how shit your writing is. This was the episode with the better version of Alex Jules about being a dad with ADHD. So, Jules, thank you so much for coming on.
So I'm just resisting shouting out fisting headers. So glad I can help.
It's been brilliant. And I've really enjoyed it. So if you as a listener enjoyed this, again, unlikely one, support the show on the link, because otherwise Alex is going to have to wedge his head into a giant circular drain just to try and get 500 quid from You've Been Framed. If you want to get in touch on the socials, it will likely take us about 1.5 weeks to respond because, Jesus Christ, people are getting in touch on the socials, but it's at ADHD Adult UK. For anybody that has emailed, we still haven't checked the email inbox. I'm putting this one entirely on Alex because he has said he will, but again, Alex and computers don't go well together, so it may take us a while for me to train him on how to open an email browser app. Oh fucking hell, my brain's gone. Anyway, get in touch if you want to. Until next time, see ya.
Bye all.
Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon, klaxon, klaxon.